Okay, in this video, I want us to talk about compound units. And so here's what we have, for example. We have 2 3/4 hours. We don't normally use mixed numbers to talk about hours. We usually just called compound units, which is where we have a larger unit and a smaller unit. And so I want to say it's blank hours and blank minutes. Isn't that normally how we actually talk about things? And so that's what we have. This is a compound unit because it's more than one unit. So we're going to change 2 3/4 hours to hours and minutes. Now the first thing we should see is this. One part we can leave alone, and you probably know which part that is. If it's 2 hours and 3/4 hours, then the 2 hours, it just stays 2 hours. And so the question is, then what do we do with the 3/4 hours? Well, that goes back to what we've previously talked about with using fraction to convert units. What we'll do is we're actually not saying 3/4 of just 1 hour, but we can say this is 3/4 of 60 minutes, right? And if we do it that way, it gets much easier, and we can go ahead and divide the 4 by 4 and 60 by 4. We'll use cross simplification. 3 times 15 is 45. And so we actually know that this is 2 hours and it is 45 minutes. And so all we've got to do things that way is just change the fraction to the unit, and we have a compound unit. Compound units show up all the time. Now, the other way we can do this is we can actually change a compound unit to we can actually change a mixed number, also just change it into the smaller unit. And so, for example, we have this one. We have 2, and this is from page 72 in your textbook. We have 2 1/4 days. Now, if I made that into hours, I could make that into a compound unit. I could make that into 2 days, and it'd be 6 hours. But what I actually want us to do this time is just change the whole thing into hours. Okay, so this time we're not doing it with a compound unit, but we're just changing the factor. So the question is, how would I do that? I want you to think, what would I do to change 2 1/4 days into hours? Okay, if you can think a little bit, here's what I would actually do. I would break it apart. I would say, I would make 2 days. I wouldn't make this a mixed number or an improper fraction or anything. I would actually take the mixed number and break it into 2 parts. 2 days is how many hours? And this is going to really help us realize why we're going to do fraction multiplication in a minute. Most of you know that 2 days would be 48 hours. And how do we know that? Well, because we did 2 days times 24, because there's 24 hours in a day. Now, if we take 2 days and multiply them times 24 to get 48. Fractions are still numbers, and they still follow all the same rules of when we multiply and add and subtract and divide. Sometimes people get confused by that. I'll say, like, we'll do a whole number problem, and we'll multiply, and then I'll give the same problem with a fraction, and students won't know to multiply. But think about it. If we do 2 times 24 to change 2 days to hours, and we're doing 1/4 of a day, then we should just do it also times 24. 1/4 of 24 hours is, and we can do cross simplification. 1 times 6 is 6. It's 6 hours. Now, what will we do if 2 days is 48 hours and 1/4 of a day is 6 hours, and I want to have 2 1/4 days? Then most of you probably figured out by now we're just going to take those two numbers and we're going to add. I'm going to say that 2 1/4 days is 54 hours.